He's just a common man, working hard with his hands.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
Last time we looked at all the toys Grunt got, so today, as promised, we're gonna discuss the character.
Starting with the file card.
And at the very top of the first file card it says Infantry Trooper, but right below that is the important bit. Codename Grunt.
And that says it all, doesn't it?
The name Grunt tells you everything you need to know about the character. He's a grunt. He's your everyman, your average Joe, the heart and soul of any military unit.
Essentially, he is G.I. Joe.
He's more of an idea than a character, if only because the text on the card itself tells you very little about what he's actually like.
But we'll get to that.
His real name is Robert W. Graves. The character may have been named after Captain Robert Graves, an English soldier, poet and author who served in the First World War. Though he wasn't a grunt, he started out as an officer. He's the guy who wrote I Claudius, amongst many other things. His primary specialty is infantry, and second one is small arms armorer artillery coordinator.
Or SAC, as nobody but me calls it.
Also, armorer is misspelled, or at least the preferred spelling is with an E at the end instead of an O. His rank is that of E4, which would make him either a corporal or a specialist. Which is interesting since I'd expect somebody called Grunt to just have the rank of private or private first class. The body of the text states he's familiar with all kinds of small arms weapons out there, and he graduated from the advanced infantry class in the top 10. He's highly motivated, systematic, and doesn't lose his cool in a firefight.
So yeah, not that much info is given about our everyman here.
Dan Grunt's file card is nearly identical to the first, though it does add Falcon Pilot to it. The biggest changes come with the 1991 file card, and has surprisingly a lot of continuity. He's been bumped up a rank to E5, making him a sergeant. His primary specialty is also changed to infantry squad leader, which makes sense given his rank increase.
No mention of the Falcon glider though.
The card mentions he was one of the original Joes, but left to go to college and get an engineering degree at Georgia Tech.
This is something that happened in the comics, but we'll get to that later.
Interesting that they didn't go with what happened to him in the cartoon.
We'll get to that later too.
He rejoined the Joes for one more tour of duty because they needed him and the business world wasn't his thing. We get a bit more personality as he grumbles but gets the job done, which is pretty much the highest compliment you can give a soldier.
See, this card I like.
It's nice to see the character evolve from, a grunt to a grumpy sarge leading others into battle. Pity about the figure though. The 1997 card gives him another bump in rank to E6 or Staff Sergeant, and also mentions him leaving the team, only to rejoin when the Joes reorganized. Oh yeah, there is some limited continuity in the 97 line, with the file cards at least. The Joes disbanded, then rebanded a few years later. Also, the 97 card seems to show Clutch, not Grunt, because the 1997 toy line always seems to find new ways to suck.
All the 2003 and 2004 file cards are virtually identical.
With the only difference being some omit a paragraph. These cards mention he uses what he learned in college to engineer new devices and weapons for the Joes, which I feel enriches the character and makes me wonder why earlier cards didn't include this. It's also on the card of the comic book figure, which is a mistake since that toy portrays him as he was in issue 4 before he left the Joes.
The cards also state that Grunt is a land of contrasts.
Dislikes authority, but will follow orders. Independent, yet works well with others. Shrewd, yet believes professional wrestling is real.
It's still real to him, damn it!
Okay, that must have led to some awkward conversations with Sergeant Slaughter. Explain the whole Iraq sympathizer thing. All later file cards just rehash stuff we've already seen, though his rank tends to jump around a bit from E4 to E6.
That brings us to other media, and we'll start with the comics.
Grunt makes his debut in issue 1, along with all the original Joes, and he sure is there? Yeah, he shows up, and that's pretty much all I can say.
Look, he isn't featured in many issues.
His most prominent role being issue 4, where, as we discussed last time, he infiltrates a Doomer compound. He also deactivates a nuclear bomb through pure strength, so he's got that going for him. He left the Joe team in issue 55 to go to college, but would show up on occasion later. He offered to help rescue the Joes held prisoner in Barovia, and helped the team when most of them were arrested after the Cobra Civil War. Now, he wasn't in too many issues, but he was on a lot of them.
Let me explain.
Yeah, that corner icon that's in the top left of every Marvel comic, for G.I. Joe, that's Grunt. And he was on there for almost every issue up to and including the 100th. Only then was it briefly replaced with Cobra Commander, and after that the inevitable Snake Eyes. But for the longest time, Grunt was G.I. Joe, or at least the ultimate representation of it.
As far as the cartoon goes,
Grunt sure was there, in the background, as befitting the name. Though I do mean that in more ways than one. You see, a bit similar to the corner icon, Grunt's model was also the basis for all those green shirts running around.
making him once again the true G.I. Joe.
His only significant role was ironically in the two-parter that saw him leave the series, and that wasn't even focused on him but on Steeler. In Worlds Without End, Steeler, Grunt, and other Joes were trapped in an alternate dimension where Cobra ruled the world. In the end, Steeler, him and Clutch elected to stay there and rebuild the alternate Joe team to fight Cobra. That wouldn't stop him from showing up in the background in later episodes though, because animation errors.
Still, Grunt was officially MIA.
And that makes it weird that he showed up in the D cartoon, which was supposed to be in continuity with Sunbow, even getting a starring role in the episode El Dorado. This was to promote the 1991 figure, of course, but why they'd make one is beyond me, considering he had been written out of both the comic and the cartoon specifically, a rare occurrence for sure, as most older characters just faded into the background and left without any explanation.
There is a theory that somebody mentioned in the comment section of part 1.
Was that maybe this was supposed to be a Hawk figure given the helmet and brown shirt, the same color as Hawk's jacket, which is possible, but Hawk got a jetpack figure that same year, so I don't know. Grunt did show up in more modern comics, getting back on the Joe team,
But I haven't read most of them, so I can't really comment.
and that was Grunt the character.
What can we take away from this?
Well, as for the person, he's a success story of somebody joining the military, then going to college and making good. Or being stuck in a hell dimension, but let's ignore that, Deke sure did.
What's more important is what the character represents.
He's the ultimate G.I. Joe! And I don't mean he's the big damn hero that saves the day like, say, Duke or Snake Eyes. No, he embodies the idea of a G.I. Joe, a regular soldier who gets the job done. The corner icon and the green shirt support me in this. So, don't think of Grunt as just a background character. Think of him as truly being G.I. Joe. Because he is. Strange, isn't it, how an average character can be anything but average?
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody, and hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?
He's just a common man.